I want to start with something lovely this morning, something utterly lovely. In fact, I want to start with the loveliest words and the loveliest sentiment that exists in the human condition. I love you forever. Think about the people to whom you have said, I love you forever. Think about the places that have inspired in you this sentiment. I love you forever. Now I have a question for you. How long is forever? The person that you love forever, how long do you get to keep that person? Do you get to keep that person forever? The place that you love so much, you love that place forever. For example, a college or a university that you used to love. An alma mater that you used to love. Do you get to keep it forever? And I heard something this week. We'll call it the paradox of forever love. I heard it from Micah Goodman, our friend and teacher in Israel. And it's so quintessentially Micah. I had never heard it before. I had never thought of it before. But once he said it, it's obviously true, and there's no other way to think about it. Here's what Micah Goodman said about the paradox of forever love. If you love something forever, and you just assume you're going to have it forever, you're not going to have it forever. But if you love something forever, and you assume you might not have it forever, you realize you may lose what you love so much you love forever, but you may lose it, then you have a much better chance of keeping it forever. Assume it's forever. It's not forever. Assume it may not be forever. Much higher chance that it can be forever. Now, the clear example, the classic example, is marriage. When a couple stands together under their chuppah, they pledge to each other, I'm going to love you forever. But as anyone who is part of a marriage that's a long-term marriage knows, that promise under the chuppah is not self-executing. It cannot be sustained by the power and beauty of the chuppah, however beautiful the chuppah is. That can only be sustained by hard work every day. And those of us who have been married for 50 years know this. You only get to 50 years if both parties wake up every morning and the most important thing is their marriage. You only get to 50 years by day after day after day after day prioritizing. There is nothing in the world more important to me than you and our marriage. That's how you get to forever marriage. Assume it, lose it. Work it every day. Maybe you can keep it. And Micah sees what is happening in Israel today through the lens of the paradox of forever love. Micah puts it this way. In Israel's 75 years, there have been 4 generations of Israelis. The first generation of Israelis got acutely what a blessing Israel is. Got acutely how precious Israel is, how essential Israel is. What the Jewish world looks like without Israel. They got it in their bones. what the world looks like without Israel. It looks like dead Jews. It looks like October 7th. It looks like pogroms and massacres. It looks like the Holocaust. And therefore we have got to fight for Israel and keep it alive. And the second generation got it, but a little less. And the third generation got it, but a little less. And the fourth generation, which is the current generation, according to Micah, it lost it. It just lost how fragile Israel is. The fourth generation just assumed Israel would always be, and when you assume it, you lose it. And that's why, just short time before October 7th, Israelis in Tel Aviv were fighting about how to daven on Yom Kippur. In Dizengoff Street, stupid stuff. They're fighting about a mechitza. Should we have a mechitza? Should we not have a mechitza? And religious Jews and secular Jews were spitting at each other and were screaming at each other on Yom Kippur. Because they had forgotten that the only way you keep something forever is if you assume you don't have it forever. And if you wake up every morning and realize that the only way I get to keep it forever is to fight for it every single day, never take it for granted. Now, the good news is, according to Micah, after October 7th, and immediately after October 7th, the fourth generation woke up. And the fourth generation now realizes very well that they can't assume Israel is forever. And that's why the IDF has fulfilled 150% of its reserve quotient. And that's why altruism is soaring. And that's why people are serving. Because they realize that to keep Israel, they have to work at Israel every day. And Micah was doing this class with 100 conservative rabbis from the Rabbinical Assembly. And something happened that never happens. He was at a loss for words. And then something else happened that never happens. He started to weep. Now, Micah's been here so many times over the years, in person and on podcasts, and you know that his affect is always good cheer and robust optimism. And he was weeping. And there are 100 rabbis on the Zoom call, holding our breath. And then Micah tells us why he's weeping. He says he just got off a Zoom call with his students, who are Israelis in their 20s and their 30s. And when it's not war, they're doctors and healers, they're business people, they're poets, they're scientists, they're musicians, they're singers, they're chefs. And many of them had to kiss goodbye their spouse to go down to Gaza. And many of them had to kiss their children, their young children, goodbye and go down to Gaza. And Micah was on a Zoom call with them. And they said, we don't know if we are going to survive this war. We don't know if we're going to be alive after we enter Gaza. But they said that they're okay, they are at peace going into Gaza, not knowing whether they will come out of Gaza, because they said, we know it's not about us, it's about something much larger than us. It's about Am Yisrael. And if Israel is going to be Israel, October 7th can never happen again. And if Israel is going to be Israel, then we need to create an Israel where families are comfortable living in Sderot again. And that is so important, that Israel is Israel and that Jews can live in peace if we have to. We are prepared to sacrifice our life for that sacred goal. And then Micah wept, and he said, they are Anashim Kedoshim, holy people. What we love forever, we have to work at forever. Now that's true for Israel, and it is also true for American Jews. If we want America to be a place that is safe for American Jews, that's going to take a lot of work every day. Now, there's no comparison between the sacrifice of Israeli soldiers who have to go into Gaza and what we have to do here to deal with raging and incandescent hatred in our local campuses and local cities. No comparison, obviously. That said, it is also true we face a two-front war. The first front, obviously, Israel and Gaza. The second front, your local college campus, where our students do not feel safe being Jews. I can't believe it, but our kids on our campuses, whether Columbia, whether Harvard, you name it, they don't feel safe as Jews being there. And I get emails now every day from our families at Temple Emmanuel. Now, this is super sobering. This is super sobering. I get emails every day from families, our families, who say, my kids are really afraid to live as Jews. We're kind of afraid to live as Jews. Would it be okay if we take our mezuzah off the door? Not for good, but until this blows over. And I want to say that request is not totally crazy. Did you hear what happened at TD Garden in Boston, Massachusetts on Thursday night? Dave Chappelle was doing a comedy show. And in the middle of his show, Dave Chappelle starts riffing on Israel and Gaza. And it's virulently anti-Semitic. And it's virulently anti-Israel. So some of the customers, presumably Jewish, who are at TD Garden, tell him to knock it off and go back to his comedy. And that just gets him going more. More vitriol against Jews, more vitriol against the Jewish state. And then truly scary happens. The crowd gets riled up, and the crowd starts chanting from sea to sea, Palestine will be free. And then the Jews who are at TD Garden get up and leave. And they don't leave out of protest. They leave because they are afraid. We got an email from one of the people who was there. He said, I left TD Garden because I was afraid. That's Boston. That's Thursday night. So how do we think about this fear? Do we take the mezuzah off our door? So this week on Tuesday, I read this op-ed that kind of took my breath away. The title of this piece is so sad and so chilling and so where we are today the title of this piece. It's written by Rabbi Rachel Timner, who is a rabbi in Brooklyn. And the title of her piece is, "Do Not Take Your Mezuzah Off Your Door." And she writes, "During the week after the attacks, on the day of the declared jihad against the Jewish people, one congregant told me through tears that she was considering removing her mezuzah from her door. That is what terrorism is intended to do, to terrify us and to make us and the world feel that maybe, just maybe, we deserve it. I said to my congregants, and I plead to all of my fellow Jews, please, please do not take your mezuzah off your door. Please do not stop assembling in your synagogues to be together. Please do not take your star from around your neck. Please do not stop living as proud Jews. Please do not stop standing as steadfast supporters of our Israeli family, who feel more alone in the world now than ever. Please do not stop calling for the return of the hostages. Please do not stop giving aid. Please do not stop calling Israeli friends and family here and there. Please do not stop doing all of the Jewish things you do. Every one of them, every Jewish thing you do matters." Now, how do we translate these courageous words into courageous action? How do we just definitely never, ever, 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 never, ever, never, ever, never, ever, never, ever take the mezuzah off our door? How do we get there when the worry is real? And how do we get there when the threat is real? So the great late Rabbi Harold Kushner once observed that the most frequent command in the Hebrew Bible is do not be afraid. Rabbi Kushner pointed out that is frequently repeated by far more than any other command. Love the stranger because you were a stranger in Egypt 36 times. Do not be afraid more than 70 times. Now, why more than 70 times? Because to not be afraid is not once and done. It's a process where, however great the threat and worry, we summon even greater resolve and even greater strength. Let me tell you what that looks like. Let's talk about Harvard University, 5 miles from here. You know that this week that the Palestinian Islamic Jihad dropped a bomb on a hospital in Gaza, and many innocent civilians died. You know that we have the footage of them actually dropping the bomb. It was apparently a misfire, but the evidence is clear. It was a Palestinian Jihad group that dropped the bomb, not an Israeli group. That is clear. And it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy that civilians in Gaza died. And at Harvard, 5 miles from here, scores of students decided to stage a die-in, as they called it, a die-in, to protest Israel dropping the bomb that killed innocent people at this hospital in Gaza. And it's so disturbing on 2 levels. One is Israel didn't drop the bomb, and these students hate Israel. And these students hate the Jewish people so much that they would not be disturbed by the facts. Second, Palestinian Islamic Jihad intended to drop it on Israel. And you know that if they had, and if it had killed hundreds of Israeli civilians, there would have been no die-in. That kind of hatred at Harvard, it's very intimidating. I got an email yesterday from one of our members. her son is an undergrad at Harvard. And he told her yesterday, he wakes up every morning in his dorm room at Harvard, and he looks outside the window. And there are all these signs from the river to the sea. Palestine will be free. All these signs. And he sees no signs condemning the murder of our people by Hamas. That kind of hatred could bully some Jews into silence. Fortunately, this past Sunday night, precisely the opposite happened. Sunday night, in front of Widener Library at Harvard Yard, a number of undergrads, student-led, mostly Israelis, but also children who grew up here. Again, our kids were there. And they protested and called out the evil that Hamas did to our people. And Israelis, it's personal. Every Israeli knew the people who were murdered and maimed and the people who were kidnapped. It was their family, it was their friends, and they talked from the heart about it. And here in a campus that convulses with hatred against the Jewish people and the Jewish state, on that night, it also convulsed with an abiding love of Israel. There were huge Israeli flags on the steps of Widener Library. The people who were there were draped and wearing Israeli flags. We took out a candle, candles everywhere, and one of the Israelis sang, El Mole Rachamim. And then, in Harvard Yard, a loud and resonant singing of Am Yisrael Chai. These undergrads, they get it. They get that if you assume that what you love forever, you'll just have it forever, it being Israel, it being America as a safe place for Jews, it being the alma mater that you used to love. If you just assume it, you lose it, but if you work for it, if you fight for it, if you strengthen it, if you defend it, then it can be yours forever. Let's do the work so that what we love forever, we get to keep forever, and that begins with never, ever, never, ever, never, ever take the mezuzah off your door.